give me them bennies. It's my religious right to use peyote, you crackers. Now, from seed to edible plant, that whole process takes 15 whole ass years. This is a slow growing plant. He ended up calling his uncle and told him, I really need help. I don't want to be an addict anymore. His uncle put together a peyote ceremony, and it had been almost 4 years substance-free with a clear mind and a full heart. Hey guys, gals, and non-binary pals, I'm your host Hannah, and this is Under the Scrubs. Alright, this is our last segment, installation, thingy, episode, whatever. This is the last topic that we will be covering in our psychedelic saga. This is mescaline, or as I keep wanting to call it, mescaline. That's not right. It's mescaline. I figured, you know what? I'm just going to kind of mesh my little intro, my timeout for the week, because it's going to be kind of a long one, right? That Trump tax bill passed, right? Unfortunately, it's going to be affecting healthcare. It's not about what side of the aisle you sit on. It's not about who you voted for. This is just facts, right? It's going to be affecting our jobs, our places of work, whether you want to accept that or not. There's going to be cuts to Medicaid, despite multiple promises not to touch it. There's roughly like $1 trillion like over the next decade that's going to be cut. And we all know hospitals get kickbacks from Medicaid, so cutting that is putting facilities at risk of closing, mainly ones that serve rural areas, like about 800 of them, and there's 314 of them that are at immediate risk of closure. I know here in Idaho, we're at like 8 hospitals that are at risk of closure, and there's at least one of them that's at immediate risk of closure within the next like 2 to 3 years. And that doesn't sound too bad, right? But like if you look at Alabama, that's got 28 hospitals that's at risk of closing, and then there's at least 23 that are at immediate risk. You know, Arkansas, 30 hospitals at risk, 11 at immediate risk. Kansas, 66 hospitals, 29 at immediate risk. Louisiana, 25 with a 7 at immediate risk. Missouri, 25 and 10 at immediate risk. Oklahoma, 47 fucking hospitals at risk of closing and 23 at immediate risk. Well, Hannah, how bad can it be? Texas, with 87 hospitals at risk of closing and 22 at immediate risk. Remember how North Carolina absolutely got fucked in that hurricane, and how hospitals were destroyed, homes were destroyed, and then they were offered like some thoughts and prayers and like, you know, a couple $100 for their suffering. You know what this cut North Carolina is going to lose? $32 billion. That's B and Billy in federal funding, and those people are expected to lose health insurance by 2034. And so where do uninsured citizens go for healthcare? To the fucking ER, where the current ER wait is already like 6 years long. Arizona's healthcare system is going to lose over $6 billion over the next 7 years. And a good chunk of their patient population smokes a pillowcase of methamphetamine every day. Let's be real. More than 55% of their hospitals would be operating in the red. They will be forced to restrict services like OB, behavioral health, and God, please no, they need that one. They would be forced to restrict other complex services or just flat out close their doors altogether. And you might think, well, I have health insurance, I'll be fine. Okay, if people aren't paying because they don't have money, who do you think they will be charging? The ones with the fucking insurance. Higher out-of-pocket costs, lower quality of care, raise prices, or just flat out close the hospital. Do you want to drive 3 hours to the nearest hospital? No. Do you want to take a helicopter ride to the closest hospital? No. Okay, how about you take a guess how much Life Flight is? The last time I saw somebody post a bill on the internet machine, it was 80 G's. That's $80,000. All right. And and I'm not going to get into like the wait times in the ER. They're going to be getting longer. Nursing homes closing or kicking Mima out. Maybe we will have homeless people with Alzheimer's. Maybe we will have homeless, confused people that think they're in the 60s or 70s. If there's a confused old person out there that maybe is on that wants to do psychedelics, maybe I will take them in. We can do some psilocybin together. That'd be kind of fun. But honestly, I can't see how shittier nursing homes can get. Maybe we will find out together. I could probably do, honestly, an entire episode about this. But, like when you have those patients that, like, you just have, like the confused old lady that finger paints in her incontinence, and then she, like, grabs your arm and you want to vomit because you're like, oh my God, you have, like, shit-stained hands. And you're like, I can't wait till I leave for my stretch off and I'm going to come back and you're not going to be here anymore. Or like you've got that violent, like mentally unwell, unhoused patient and like you had to waffle stomp maggots when they first got here because you had to do a decontam shower. Or like any patient that you've just been like, yeah, man, I can't wait till I come back and you're not here because you got placement and you're gone. Guess what? They're not going to be, they're still going to be there. They're not going to be gone because we're not going to have resources anymore and they're going to be stuck there. So you might as well kiss them on the forehead, tuck them into bed, or honestly climbing next to them because you might as well just get used to them being there. Okay. You're probably gonna get the patience of a saint or start drinking or start doing psychedelics. We all might have to start doing psychedelics, everyone. Okay. And so maybe that's why it's fate that I started doing this series. So unfortunately we can't do mescaline. And I'll touch on that at the very end of this. So that being said, now that I've got myself all worked up, resources for this episode: Justia U.S. Supreme Court, Decriminalized Nature, Neuropharmacology, Alcohol and Drug Foundation, and How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan. So mescaline is like the redheaded stepchild psychedelic that everyone kind of likes to forget. It has a chemical compound that's like MDMA, and it's produced into like these classes of like cactus. The peyote cactus grows in like a narrow band around both sides of the Rio Grande River in Mexico and US. And that area is called the Peyote Gardens. The San Pedro cactus is native to the Andes, and that's called the Huachuma, and that actually has mescaline in it. Not a ton of it, and even like mescaline, it's a very mild psychedelic overall. It honestly, this really just hides in plain sight, right? Grows all over. It's legal to grow, but it crosses that boundary into like the illegal land when it goes from just being grown to have there to like when you start to like prepare it to be consumed, right? And initially in 1492, when conquistadors came to the Americas, they brought Catholicism with them, and then when they got over here, they're seeing people basically practice a different religion. They don't really like it. They're seeing people like eat this cactus. They're using it part of a worship. And these people were like, yeah, we eat this cactus. We see God. We're talking to them. Okay, well, when they do this, they're kind of undercutting the priesthood, right? It's a really powerful sacrament. So Spanish is like, I don't like that. They're going to suppress it. They're going to try to wipe it out. And that's kind of when, honestly, the war on drugs kind of starts, right? Huachuma becomes known as the San Pedro because they're trying to protect it, right? They're going to give it a Christian name. In English, it's St. Peter, and St. Peter actually holds the keys to the gate of heaven, so that's really smart of them. In 1620, during the Mexican Inquisition, they declared peyote a heretical perversity opposed to the purity and integrity of the Holy Catholic faith. If you were interrogating a native, you had a list of questions to ask, and one of them was, do you consume the evil peyote or the diabolical root? Unfortunately, or fortunately enough, efforts failed, and the Native Americans have carved out special use for the cactus. The peyote ceremony is all about healing the person, and the oral history that's passed down is it starts out with a woman. As the story goes, this medicine was found by a woman, a young lady, a chief's daughter. She was on a journey. She was told to ride to get on a horse and get away as there were white people coming. She got on her horse and rode until the horse gave out. She continued to walk until she couldn't walk anymore. She became hungry and needed water. She fainted and collapsed. And some people will call it a dream or a vision. The medicine found her and talked to her, and the medicine told her to consume it, and so she did. She had been rejuvenated and developed that spiritual connection with the medicine, and she was able to continue with her journey. The medicine told her to take it back to her people, and so some tribes call her the medicine mother Peyote, and she represents Mother Earth, the life giver. But Native Americans' right to use peyote has not always been handed to them. They really had to fight for it ever since the founding of the Native American Church. There are people who regard the use of peyote with fear and suspicion. It was caught up in prohibition. Later, it was swept up in the war on drugs, and then it was put on the Schedule 1 drug. There was actually a famous case called Employment Division v. Smith. To give you the TLDR, too long didn't read, Alfred Smith and Galen Black were fired from their job after their employer kind of went after them. They knew that due to their cultural background that they were taking peyote in a religious ceremony. And so they had asked them, hey, what'd you do over the weekend? Did you take peyote? And when they had, said, yes, we did, they got fired for it. And so Smith and Black sought out unemployment compensation benefits, to which the unemployment division said no, because they had violated a state criminal statute. Smith sued the employment division and said, give me them bennies, it's my religious right to use peyote, you crackers, and initially won in the lower courts. Employment division said hell no, and took it to the Oregon Supreme Court, to which they overturned and actually reversed this decision and said, no bennies for you. Native American Church had actually lost rights to use peyote, and then this is like what's mind-boggling to me, right? Because like us as Europeans, even if it's not us, even if you're like, well, technically I'm not European or whatever, right? We had came to America for freedom of religion. We get here, we look around, and we're like, very nice. Said it was ours, looked at the Native Americans, looked at their culture, and we're like, I don't like that. You can't do that. And I guess it's really probably not that surprising, because I feel like we're kind of still doing it today with like trying to force each other to like bend to our own religion and ideology, and like you can't be different from each other. But like, I digress. I won't go down that road. A man named Reuben Snake, he had started a campaign that was actually ended in the result in a new law that had passed in 1994 that was actually signed by President Clinton. That was a tremendous victory, as it protected the use of peyote as a sacrament under the First Amendment. Since the mid-1990s, Native American church and peyote ceremonies had grown in popularity as Native Americans worked to heal themselves, and part of this means keeping the ceremonies closed to outsiders. So no recording of the ceremonies and no outsiders allowed. And they say what is sacred sometimes is a secret, and honestly, that's okay. So in an interview with Michael Pollan, he goes out to Black Hills, South Dakota, and he talks to Julius Not Afraid. He is a Lakota Native American, and he talks about how he suffered for years with depression, anxiety, drugs, and alcohol. Julius had started a family in his early 20s. He had 2 children, and he had difficulties, and the mother of his kids asked him to leave. This led to 15 years of meth use, and he was a daily user. He got to the point he told himself that you're either going to be incarcerated or be 6 feet under. He ended up calling his uncle and told him, I really need help. I don't want to be an addict anymore. His uncle put together a peyote ceremony. Family, all different relatives, all came together and had set up a lodge. He said that they would enter the lodge before the sun goes down, and there's essence of herbs that are burnt onto the charcoal, and it started bringing his senses. As he started to administer the medicine with the prayers and the energy, he could feel the rejuvenation. He can feel the fire start breathing with Mother Earth. His brain seemed to start having movement to allow the medicine to take an in-depth doctoring from his heart, mind, body, and spirit. He knew this was his one chance. He cried for the Great Spirit to give him his life back. He didn't want to be an addict anymore. There were hands massaging into his brain. He started making connections with ancient relatives, and he found his spirit in the ceremony. At the top of the morning, when the ceremony had come to the conclusion, he could recall a courage to seek this other route of having goodness and being a family man. He felt so strong and full of energy that even today he still holds on to this dearly. It had been almost 4 years substance free with a clear mind and a full heart. Now, I'm sure younger me probably would giggle and maybe think that might sound a little bit silly, but now having worked in healthcare and you meet lots and lots and lots of addicts, but I don't think you meet as many recovering addicts. I mean, they do recover, but I mean, to be able to say that you were able to wake up one day and go, I don't want to do this anymore, and to be able to essentially take a psychedelic like this and, I mean, stop clean, like that's incredible. I mean, I don't care if you said that you had to get up every day, suntan your gooch butt naked for 30 minutes, and that's what helped you get clean. I mean, if that's what helped, that's what helped, man. Mescaline is a molecule that's produced by these cacti. It played a central role in the early part of psychedelic history. In 1897, Arthur Hefter is the first to actually extract mescaline from peyote. In 1920s is where it was being used, but it was actually Aldous Huxley who really put it on the map. He was a famous author who read about it in the 50s, and he had reached out to Humphrey Osmond, who was a researcher on mescaline, and he told Humphrey, was like, yo, let me try this. Huxley tried it, and he really got what was unique about it, and he wrote a book called Doors of Perception, and he was actually quite an influence to Timothy Leary. Mescaline is a less visionary psychedelic than LSD. The hallucination is not a big part of the experience, but it's very much about the body and the feelings. It's not about escaping reality in any way, but plunging deeper into reality. So, if we remember Leary, this was the ex Harvard professor. This was the one that was fired for the psilocybin project that kind of got a little buck wild, right? And there's a split in the psychedelic community with like this populist and like the latest. So, Leary, who is like, give this to as many people as you possibly can, and let's change the culture. And you have the latest, and Huxley's one of them. He thought that it was too dangerous, it's just too powerful, and if you give it to everyone, who knows what will happen. You should just give it to the best and the brightest and the influencers, and the new consciousness will just kind of filter down to society. So Huxley and Leary were kind of butting heads against this. And one of the most interesting political movements to actually kind of pop up in the country in the last couple of years or so is to decriminalize nature movement, making various plant medicines decriminalized. And that would be like ayahuasca, psilocybin, and actually peyote. So technically they would still be illegal, but it is like the lowest level priority. So like if it is called into the police, like if it's personal use, there's no commerce involved, it's like bottom of the barrel, like they're not going to be there. So it is a movement to decriminalize entheogenic plants. Now, peyote is being grouped into this movement, and there is a concern for the Native American side of this, as you can have non-Native American individuals start coming onto their land and poaching peyote. Now, from seed to edible plant, that whole process takes 15 whole ass years. This is a slow growing plant. They are endangered not only here, but in Mexico as well. In Texas, there are numerous dangers. There's like bad harvesting, there's wind turbines, there's access roads to get to the wind turbine that cut into these like growing areas for peyote. So then like what happens if people are going to people and they just like end up killing off this entire part of like an important part of someone's culture? You just kind of apologize and just say, oops, sorry. I'm not gonna lie, I honestly only knew that like peyote and mescaline were used in indigenous cultures, but I didn't know the threat of extinction, let alone like the sacredness of it and like what it meant to Native American culture. Does it intrigue me? Absolutely. Would I ever try it? Absolutely not. America was built on stolen land. There is rising tension over who and who should not use peyote, and I think it just really kind of boils down to like respect of others' beliefs and cultures. You don't want me to take your hallucinogenics because You want to be able to pass them down to your generation to generation and keep them in your culture. Yeah, I can do that. I can pass that info down the line too, no problem. Oh my God. Okay. Holy shit. There's this lady. Okay. I'm sorry. Sidebar. I have to finish. I'm going to wrap the story up, right? But I have to tell you the story when my husband and I were on our honeymoon in Curacao, right? We were on this walking tour, and the lady that's like giving us like our little informational tour, we kind of thought that like she was being a little condescending, right? Because she's like, not everybody follows America and all this other kind of stuff. We're listening to her and we're like, yeah, no shit, right? Because like not everybody follows our culture. Everybody's got their own, right? Okay. And then this lady in our group opens her mouth and we're like, oh, okay. She's the reason why you say that, because we don't think she's ever left her gated community. She had like, we were on our bus and we're going through, their beautiful city. And she had raised her hand and asked, do you guys have a trash service? Like, no, they make them hold their like trash, all the trash they've ever like accumulated in their life. They make them hold it in their hand. Like, yeah, they have a fucking trash service. Like, who doesn't have a trash service? Like, ma'am, oh my, it was so embarrassing. So the tour guide was talking about how they have their official language is Dutch and how they speak a blend of Creole. It's like 7 different languages into one, Papiamento. And so we're listening to her like, wow, like that's really cool. And then the lady had raised her hand again and said, oh, it's like the IKEA language. And so the tour guide was like, no, that's Swedish. And so she goes, well, same thing. It's like, oh my God, it's not. This is also the same lady that like answered her FaceTime in the middle of like, like the little presentation so we can hear, I don't know, some like bitch ass kid crying and like so we can't hear the tour guide. She just was like super incredibly rude, and it was just like, okay, that's why people hate Americans and like say those things that like to everybody else is like common sense, but to like these people it makes sense. So just be respectful of other people's cultures, like I don't think it's that hard. All right, we're wrapping all of our psychedelic shit up. I'd love to hear if your opinion has changed at all, or if it's stayed the same, or maybe you're like, Hannah, I think you're off your freaking rockers. Actually, if you think that, don't tell me. I don't care to know. Yeah, I'm not sure what we're doing next week, so it will have to be a surprise. I'm going to have to do it a little bit early. I will release a little teaser before next Tuesday because my mom's got to be all dramatic and shit and get surgery. So I got to go up and like take care of her or whatever. So I will have to record my episode a little bit early, which means my husband will have to edit it a little bit early. So I will be on time and not be scrambling at the last minute to get this bitch edited. So I will release a little teaser and let you guys know. So until then, I will see you guys next Tuesday. Okay, love you. Bye.
Is this thing on? How do you work this thing? Whoa, new voice. Who are you? Hey guys, I'm the editor behind this awesome podcast where your lovely host Hannah brings you the inside scoop of all things medical. I just want to say thank you to all who have been listening to this podcast thus far. We're obviously still new to this sort of thing, and every week is a new experience for the both of us. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so that we can continue to grow and bring you more awesome content. Also, we would love to hear your thoughts and suggestions on new topics, so let us know what you'd like to hear and learn more about. If you comment a suggestion for a new topic and we release an episode on it, we'll reach out to you and send you an Under the Scrubs t-shirt completely for free. But if you're interested in buying an Under the Scrubs t-shirt, please hit subscribe and comment new T, and we'll contact you on how you can purchase some new swag. That being said, thanks for listening to this week's episode. We'll see you on the next one. Okay, love you, bye.